She came back a month later with a small suitcase and the same smile as always. She walked into the apartment like she'd stepped out to buy groceries. He was sitting there with a baseball bat in his hand, and when she said, "I'm back, babe," he answered with 3 words she never expected to hear.
My girlfriend asked for a month of freedom. When she came back, I had changed completely and turned her away. I work as a remote video editor. My name is Valentine. I'm 27 years old and my life is basically me, a monitor, headphones, and coffee. I spend most of my days alone in front of a screen, adjusting cuts, adjusting colors, delivering projects. It's not a glamorous life, but it was a quiet one. That specific afternoon I was finishing up an ad, and the comfortable certainty that in a few hours Pilar would get home from work, and we'd spend the evening watching some movie over dinner. 2 years together, 1 living together. We weren't a perfect couple. I suppose no one is. We argued about normal things. Who did the dishes, what to order for dinner. Never anything serious. I was in love with her in the most complete way. I knew the kind of love where you build an entire routine around someone without realizing it, until the routine and the person become the same thing. At 6 p.m. I heard the door open. I pulled off my headphones, smiled. "You're home. What do you want to watch tonight?" I was thinking about that movie that came out last week. She didn't let me finish. Pilar stood in the living room doorway, bag still on her shoulder. There was a strange calm about her. "I think we should break up." I felt something strange move through my body, a cold hollow. I blinked several times. "What?" She sighed, set her bag on the couch. "I don't want to actually break up. I want us to pretend to, for everyone to believe it. Just for a month. Did something happen at work?" I thought someone had given her a hard time, that she was stressed, that there was some rational explanation for this. She smiled. "No, babe, you didn't do anything wrong." And then I said something I'm embarrassed to remember. Something that felt logical in the moment, but looking back was the most humiliating thing that could have come out of my mouth. "What did I do wrong?" She stepped toward me. Used that soft voice she pulled out when she wanted to convince me of something. "Nothing, baby. I just want a little freedom. I'm 25, I have a whole life ahead of me, and I want that life with you. I just need a small break. You understand, right?" I cried right there, couldn't stop it. And the worst part, my reaction wasn't anger, wasn't asking what the hell that even meant. No, what I did was beg. "If I did something wrong, tell me. I'll fix it. I promise." I remember this and feel secondhand shame for myself. Pilar hugged me. I smelled her perfume, the same one I'd given her on our first anniversary. She ran her hand through my hair and said, "I'll come back. I just want a moment for myself." Then she pulled away, walked toward our bedroom, and opened the closet. The suitcase was there, ready, completely ready, clothes folded, zipper closed. I went still. "You already had this planned?" She looked at me completely naturally. "For weeks, my love." She smiled again, like she was telling me she'd bought tickets for a trip. She walked over, kissed me, said, "Don't forget me. I'll be back. I just want to feel free." And she left. The door closed. Left me standing there, crying in the middle of the living room.
The suitcase was already packed. That's not impulsiveness, that's planning. She didn't have a crisis and decide to go. She decided to go, prepared everything, rehearsed what she'd say, and came home to execute it. The conversation wasn't a breakup. It was a delivery.
I'd never felt a silence that heavy. I stood there for several minutes staring at the door like it was about to open again, and the whole thing was a bad joke. It didn't open. I sat on the couch and kept crying. My social life was practically non-existent. Remote work, video editing, occasional text with a few friends. Pilar was my daily company, my routine, my person, and she had just told me she needed freedom. At 8 p.m. my phone notified. It was one of her stories. I opened it without thinking. A photo with 3 friends at a party, everyone smiling with glasses raised. A caption underneath. "Freedom first has to be accepted, then planned, then finally enjoyed." I felt a horrible stab in my chest. I kept watching the stories. There were lights, music, laughter, dancing videos, photos with friends, and photos with several guys I had never seen before. One with his arm around her waist, another pressed close to her face while they both smiled, another holding her hand while she made a playful expression. During our relationship, she went out sometimes. I never had a problem with it. I always trusted her. Never checked her phone, never questioned anything. But that night I understood something that hurt more than her absence. None of that was spontaneous. The packed suitcase, the party ready, the friends already in on it, the caption prepared. I was the only idiot who hadn't known anything. At 9:30 p.m. my phone rang. Rubain, my best friend since college. I answered trying to sound normal. My voice broke before I finished the first sentence. "Man, what happened with Pilar? I saw the photos, the captions. Did you guys break up?" I went quiet, then said only, "Yeah." He took a second. "How are you?" I couldn't answer. I started crying again. Rubain didn't say anything for a while, just listened. Then he spoke with a firm tone I'd never heard from him before. "Enough. I'm coming over. You don't have to." "Yes, I do. I'm not leaving you alone." He hung up. I sat there staring at the screen. 5 minutes later, Pilar posted another story. Now she was sitting in the lap of one of the guys. He was smiling at the camera. So was she. With that big smile I had always thought was only mine. I felt something shift inside me. It wasn't immediate rage. It was more like a fracture, something that finally broke after hours of barely holding itself together. And for the first time that night, I stopped crying. I stared at that photo for a few seconds. Then I closed Instagram and sat in complete silence waiting for Ruben to arrive. The buzzer rang about 20 minutes later. I was still sitting in the dark with my phone turned off between my hands, staring at a fixed point. When I opened the door, he walked in without saying anything. Just looked at me and my face must have said everything, because he set his keys on the table and pulled me into a hard hug. That's when I actually fell apart. Not the quiet kind you try to hide the other kind. The ugly, out of control kind that leaves you breathless and makes you feel ridiculous even while it's happening. Ruben held me, didn't say anything for several minutes, waited until I could breathe normally, then sat me down and settled across from me with that serious expression I'd only seen from him once or twice in my life. Man, do you remember when I went to Germany for my exchange semester and Diana broke up with me over the phone? Of course I remembered. I always thought it was just a funny anecdote for him. He even joked about it. Women are everywhere. I'll find a rich German girl here. Yeah, I remember, Ruben swallowed. And then I heard something I'd never noticed before when he talked about Diana. His voice shook. It wasn't nothing like I said. I had a rough time, a really rough time, and being away from everyone from you, man, I felt completely alone. I looked at him, surprised. First time he'd talked about it honestly. He let out a short, bitter laugh. I never thought a breakup could make me suffer that much. I genuinely thought I was losing my mind. He ran a hand over his face and held my gaze. And I don't want you going through the same thing, so I'm going to help you. I felt a knot in my throat. Nodded while trying to hold back tears. And then I said something that embarrasses me more than anything else from that night. But she's supposed to come back in a month. I don't think I should get too used to her being gone. I didn't even finish the sentence before I saw his expression change. He stood up from the couch, walked toward me, and slapped me. What is wrong with you? Ruben looked at me with fury. You actually just thought that. I just said she's coming back. The second slap came even faster. I stood up. What is your problem? You came here to help me. He kept his eyes fixed on me. Listen to yourself, Valentine. She can still come back. Ruben barely moved. Just stepped forward and said with a cold voice, I'll do it again if you say that stupid thing one more time. She's not coming back, and if she does come back, it'll be after being with a lot of people. Tell me something. Are you the kind of idiot who sits home waiting like an obedient dog while imagining someone else with his girlfriend? Everything I'd seen that night, the packed suitcase, the stories, the guys, the caption, none of it was improvised. There was no passing emotional crisis. It was a calculated decision. All those plans, marriage, kids, growing old together, they're gone. It's not going to happen, at least not with her.
Ruben did what a real friend does. Emotional pain creates a loop you think, suffer, imagine, suffer more. The only way to break the loop isn't comfort, it's disruption. The effect was exactly right. It pulled Valentine out of his daze and forced him to process reality instead of fantasizing about it.
I slept 2 hours that night, but for the first time I didn't check Pilar's social media. At exactly 6, the buzzer rang. Ruben was always on time. I opened the door still half asleep. He was in athletic clothes. Move. What? Move, Valentine? You have work to finish, so do it fast. He looked at me and smiled slightly. I finished my projects at a speed I didn't know I had. At 8:30 I closed the laptop. Ruben stood up. Let's go. He took me to a park where he ran with a group of friends after work. I had never done anything like it. My life was editing video and staying inside. The first afternoon I barely lasted 15 minutes before feeling like I was drowning. They laughed, but not meanly. Ruben slapped me on the back. Tomorrow you'll last 20, and that's how it went. Then 25, then 30. A week later he took me to the gym. I hated every second of the first session, but when it ended, I felt something I hadn't felt in days. Real exhaustion, not emotional pain, physical pain, and that was strangely better. The day started filling up. Work, running, gym, eating better, sleeping, talking to real people, laughing again. Little by little, almost without noticing, I stopped thinking about Pilar. It wasn't immediate, it wasn't magic. One day I just realized that hours had gone by without thinking of her, then days. And for the first time since she left, I understood something. Maybe Ruben was right. Maybe the person who died that night wasn't the relationship. It was the version of me that had been willing to settle for crumbs. On the exact month that Pilar had left, I was doing squats at the gym. I'd been training with Ruben in the group for several weeks. For the first time in years, I felt like I was building something real with myself. It wasn't just physical. It was the routine, the discipline, the feeling that my life no longer revolved around waiting for someone to come home. As I was racking the bar, one of the guys smiled. So, has Pilar come back yet? Everyone burst out laughing. It wasn't mockery. It was an inside joke. Ruben had given him a condensed version of what happened. Another guy added. Bet she shows up and says, Hi babe, I'm back. I'm exactly the same as before, just way less caged now. The laughter exploded again. And to my own surprise, I laughed too. For real. Ruben gave me a friendly nudge on the shoulder. Don't mind them. Just joking around. I know, I said, smiling. And I did know. The strange thing was that it didn't hurt the same way anymore. Just hearing her name no longer broke something in my chest. She was just a distant shadow. We kept training. Then we all went out for dinner. Ate, talked about nothing, argued about soccer. I was there laughing, feeling like part of something. But when I got home that night, I felt a small, absurd nervousness. Like a buried part of my brain was still waiting for the phone to ring. A message from her saying, a month is up. I'll be there tomorrow. It didn't come. And with each passing week, even that leftover expectation faded away. Almost 2 months later, I was finishing cuts on a new project. I'd been back from the gym, showered, responded to some work messages. I was in that automatic mode, the state of calm focus that only comes back when you've started to enjoy your own company again. And then I heard the lock. My body reacted before my brain. I jumped to my feet. I wasn't expecting anyone. Rubain always texted first, and then I remembered something that ran cold through me. I had forgotten to change the lock. I grabbed the baseball bat I kept next to the desk. The sound of the deadbolt turning came again. The door opened. It was her. Pilar walked in like nothing happened, dragging a small suitcase and smiling. "Hey, babe, I'm back." She saw the bat and let out a small laugh. "Wow, that! You thought I was a burglar." She stopped laughing and added completely naturally, "Don't be silly, remember I live here. I have a key." I felt a strange mix of surprise and something like secondhand embarrassment. The woman who 2 months ago had torn me apart was standing in front of me, acting like she could walk back in as if she'd just stepped out to buy groceries. I lowered the bat. "What are you doing here?" She blinked, confused. "Well, I came back." She smiled like that explained everything. "I took a little longer than expected, but here I am. By the way, why didn't you call me when my freedom month was up?" I looked at her for a few seconds and answered with a calm I hadn't expected from myself. "Honestly, I didn't expect you to come back." Her smile went rigid. "What? As far as I'm concerned, you're already dead to me." Her expression changed completely. "Babe, why are you talking like that? Look at me. I'm the same as I always was. I came back because I love you." I let out a short, dry laugh. "Of course you love me." I took a step toward her. "I was the only one who loved anyone in that relationship. To you, I was just something disposable." Her eyes started filling. "Don't say that, baby. Get out." Her face contorted with indignation, and then the performance began. "Sure. Now I'm the worst person in the world for wanting a little freedom. Now I'll be the villain of the story just for being a person with feelings." I shook my head. "I don't have time for your drama. Get out." She opened her mouth, offended. The tears started. "You never talked to me like this before. You changed. Now you're someone who can't handle a woman having any freedom." I laughed. "What I can't handle is someone coming back like nothing happened after everything they did." The message was received from day one. Her slap came fast. It rang out loud, but I didn't move. She was shaking with rage. "Don't speak to me that way. Respect me. I'm your girlfriend." I looked at her with a coldness I hadn't known I had. "You're nothing." She went still. "You're just anyone. You were never really anything." I pointed at the door. "Go. Enjoy that freedom you wanted so much. Road's clear." Her face broke. "You're a resentful idiot." I guided her toward the exit. She struggled. "You're hurting me, Valentine." I didn't respond. I opened the door, and then she smiled in a horrible way. The kind of smile someone uses when they want to land one final blow before leaving. "Just so it hurts more, every time I went out with my friends, I was with someone else. Even before we took this break." She waited for tears, rage, pain. She got nothing. I looked at her the way you'd look at someone who just told you it might rain tomorrow. "That's what I'd expect from someone like you." I shrugged. "It's like saying water is wet." Her expression went from fury to complete humiliation. She raised her hand to hit me again. I caught her wrist before it landed, and she screamed, "Help! He's attacking me!"
She pulled out the last tool available, the victim narrative. When she couldn't produce emotional pain, she tried to create a witness. It's the move of someone who's lost control of the situation and needs to reframe it. The problem is that narratives need an audience, and the audience was on the wrong side.
A neighbor came out immediately. "Let her go, coward." Before I could say anything, another voice cut in. Donna Teresa, the nosiest neighbor on the block. The woman who knew everyone's business and watered her garden like it was a military operation. "Don't lie. She tried to hit him. I just heard her confess she was with other men." Pilar's eyes went wide. "No, he's throwing me out of my own home." Donna Teresa let out a dry laugh. "Your home? This young man has been paying rent for years. You just showed up to disturb his peace." She stepped a little closer and crossed her arms. "Leave before I call the police. They don't like scenes either." Pilar looked at me with pure hatred. "You'll never find a woman like me," I answered immediately. "God willing." Her face stiffened. She grabbed her bag violently and left without another word. I watched her walk down the street with uneven steps, and for the first time, I felt absolutely nothing. No anger, no sadness, just relief. I looked at Donna Teresa. "Thank you." She adjusted her glasses and smiled. "Son, find yourself a good woman. Stop letting just anyone into your home." I nodded. "I will." I went inside and closed the door. The next morning I changed the lock. I never really heard from Pilar again. Sometimes I see her in the city center. She pretends not to see me. I do the same. I'm still training. I've changed a lot physically. I post a few photos online more as a personal record than to show anyone. And curiously, there's an account called Vanessa that comments on almost everything. Not even that strong. How ridiculous to post this like anyone cares about your non-existent progress. You're clearly still trying to get attention. I'm almost certain it's Pilar, but I don't block it. I don't respond. I leave it there, commenting from a fake account, watching a life she chose to leave on her own. If there's one thing I took away from all of this, it's this. Sometimes losing someone isn't a tragedy. Sometimes it's surgery. It hurts, it bleeds, it leaves a scar, but it removes something that was making you sick from the inside. I thought Pilar was the love of my life. She turned out to be the most painful lesson I needed to start building a better one. And honestly, I'm grateful she left. Because if she had stayed, I never would have met the man I am now. She left. I stayed. That was everything.